Hello, it's October 11th, 2022, and we're getting into fall here, so I wanted to do a video showing some fall colors before they all are gone. Some things are peaking now, some things are not near peak yet, some things are still a week or two off. We've had some light frosts, but not a very hard freeze here, so some plants are going dormant. It's also been quite dry the latter part of the summer, and most of the early fall here have been pretty dry. So that's probably affecting the leaf turn a little bit, but so far the colors are decent. It's better than some years already. So I'll kind of pan around here. There's not much fruit left to harvest. I do have one of these Romanaya quinces. One of them I touched the other day and it fell off the tree. And then one the birds got to a little sooner. But this one that's been damaged has a nice fragrance because it's been sitting around for a couple weeks. Smells great. These quinces have an amazing scent. So I'll probably pick that one soon. Only 3 that it made this year. So you'll see surface berries are getting some color. Some peaches are getting some color. Hazelnuts are very variable. So this one's got really nice red leaves. Some of them are barely turning at all. Red Oyster Dogwood's already lost all of its foliage. Rose of Sharon is turning yellow. Another hazelnut there. Autumn olive, Nanking cherry, hazelnut, etc. So we'll just kind of pan around. Hopefully the wind noise won't be too extreme. It is windier today than normal. And I'm just doing this at the time of day that I'm able to do it. So I don't know if the lighting is going to be ideal. The lighting is probably prettier when it's lower in the sky, you know, in the evening or the morning. You get some really beautiful colors coming through, but I wasn't able to do it then. And a lot of this garden is in shade in the morning, these pine trees anyway. So you see here, these Catalpas are kind of turning yellow, not too showy. Not much left flowering. The asters are about it. Not a whole lot else going on with flowering plants. Here's a peach, a Siberian Sea type peach from Michael Ann. That's got some pretty fall color. They've got a few more of those around too that also have nice color. Here's American Plum coloring up. There's some sunchokes turning yellow. This is another Siberian Sea Peach there. You see there's these purple flowers are New England asters. Those are still going. They go for a while, a few weeks. My last video they were starting, and now this is about 2 weeks later and they're still going, so impressive. Like to see those around the garden. This pear tree here had quite a bit of fruit on it this year. Most of it has fallen off. Probably if I shook the tree, whatever couple fruits are still on there would probably come down. I think the deer have been coming to eat these in the evening time. This is a small misshapen one, but I had some nice looking ones on there. I ate some, gave some away, and the deer ate some, so all's fair. We all got our share. These tall trees in the back are sugar maples that my great-grandfather planted. Those are coloring up pretty nicely. Got a pampas type grass there. Those are coloring up. They're ornamental seed fronds. Got Nanny Berry here. It's got a nice fall color, kind of a dark magenta. And there's a European hazelnut behind that. Asparagus turns pretty bright yellow in the fall. There's another little one there. I'm gonna try not to shoot into the sun too much and try not to get my own stupid shadow in the picture too much, but maybe unavoidable. Poison ivy, bane of my existence, actually has a kind of a nice fall color. And you'll see that and Virginia creeper are both really glowing right now, scrambling up all kinds of tree trunks in unmanaged woodland areas. So you can't see in this light, but a lot of apples on these trees this year. And most of them are on the ground, rotting, unfortunately, not making any cider. I've been eating a lot of them off the ground, and so have the deer. But kind of a waste of a crop this year because I didn't have anything in place to process those, do something better with them. This peach, old peach here, is this, maybe it's last year live. I know I keep saying that. It's got some pretty fall color. There's not much left to that tree. Another Siberian Sea Peach there with some nice colors. Hazelnut, hazelnut. Service berries taller in the back there. So we'll kind of come around. Let's see what I want to show here. The seedling beds are mostly, some of them are going dormant and some aren't. So these persimmons got touched by the early frost. And so you see all these leafless things are persimmon stems, but the hazelnuts in here still have their leaves for the most part. The grapes kind of got frosted early too. So I've got a lot of work here to do to dig all this stuff out and try to find homes for some of this stuff. Because I don't know, sometimes these things don't overwinter that well in these beds and you lose a lot of plants that way. So I'd like to find homes for these in the fall here if I can. There's still plenty of time to plant stuff. The ground's not going to be frozen for quite a while. So here, these persimmons in this bed, for some reason, they are still fairly leafed out. So these yellowish leaves are persimmons. These here with the compound leaves, those are a hickory from Oikos. I got some gigantic Nanking cherries that I meant to get out of here earlier in the season. I've got a bunch of chestnuts over here. And these were looking pretty sad earlier. You know, a lot of them look more like this. But then I did put some acidifying fertilizer and also some iron and some worm compost as like a top dressing on these beds. So hopefully one or all of the above help those out, and the trees do look better now. Got a crazy elderberry here that's trying, well, it's growing out from underneath the bed. You probably can't see it, but it's growing out from underneath and up. And then it's got some nice fall color, but it's also trying to set a late flower here, which is interesting. I guess some of these things flower pretty long into the season. Got some purple frost-kissed leaves on that, those stupid things, forsythia there. The persimmon here is coloring up yellowish leaves. The river oats or wild oats here are looking nice. The clove currant, native clove currant, Ribes odoratum, that gets a very pretty fall color. And pokeweed is kind of a nice ornamental, don't mind the mess here, but that looks pretty in the fall. Let's see, what else do we have going on. This elderberry set all of its fruit. Birds got it all, I didn't do anything with it. And the grapevine still has its leaves, surprisingly, but the grapes are all done. And this garden, mostly done for the season. I'm gonna walk back around over here, this part that I'm showing now, but just showing it from the distance. And this camera has like an auto adjust thing, so I don't always like the way that that handles lighting and color. And I meant to bring my other camera today, my little GoPro type camera, to try that. It's got a wider lens probably, and just give a different kind of view, but I forgot that at home, so I'm using the stupid iPhone again. So here you see there's a bunch of seedlings of maple. I think these are red maple of some sort. There's a tulip tree that came in. I love these areas here, they're so wild. There's all kinds of species going on. And in the fall here, you can start to pick things out a little bit easier than when everything is just green. Because the leaves change, they turn different colors, they show the different shapes, or they turn sooner or later. This looks like an ash of some kind. This is something I hadn't even noticed before, but it kind of looks like a Nanny Berry, but I think it might be a prunus, like a choke cherry or something. I didn't plant any Nanny Berries over here. Oh, I forgot to show you the fruit on the Nanny Berry. And this is a good time to do that, even though the plant is not in good light right now. The fruits are ripe, and there's a decent amount on this bush this year. Not tons. But you see here, these little droops, well, purple, and when they start to get kind of soft and shriveled a bit, that's the time when you know they're ripe. So these, you could take all the ones off this bush and it wouldn't amount to very much, but if you had a bunch of these growing, you could make a nice fruit leather or paste or something. It's quite a delicious fruit. It tastes like a spiced date paste to me. So yeah, these are Nanny Berries in the fall. They have these really distinctive kind of spear-shaped twig tips there. forgetting the botanical term. But yeah, it's a distinctive plant. I've planted a lot more of them around because I think they're cool, and they grow okay here. They don't grow that well, but they seem to survive anyway. So as we go over here, we have some blueberries, and blueberries can get very beautiful full color. That one's not too striking just yet, but it's not bad. There's another one there. I used to have a bunch of blueberries here, but I moved them all because they were a little bit too shaded and a little bit too dry underneath the canopy of these pine boughs, which keep growing out and out and out. So either I limb these things up, which I have done a bit of, and you see they're shedding needles right now too. There's a lot of yellow ones on there. But here's some blueberries. There's some sunchokes that have an interesting color. Usually I don't see that kind of color on sunchokes, but those are pretty. And late flowering thing here, that's not a sunchoke. Blueberry, got some hazelnuts in the background over there. We've got a catalpa here. This colorful stuff here is mostly sassafras. And this thicket I allowed to grow. I stopped mowing this area because I knew the sassafras would grow out this way. So that helps create a barrier, a visual screen and a noise screen a bit between my garden and the noisy truck parking lot over here. This is grape season. We're bringing out the Concord grapes into Welch's right now, which is that factory across the road there. So it's quite noisy around here. So I want to show you, I've got a couple of nice pawpaw trees in this thicket that I put in because I knew they would appreciate the shelter of those sassafras, and it seems to be working well. So here's a pawpaw that was planted maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but growing nicely, and it's starting to sucker out here. You see it's got a couple of root sprouts. It's got one there and one back there. And then if you see these yellow ribbons around trees, that means those are probably going to be removed this winter to allow more light on other things. So you'll see those here and there. And then these ugly tree wraps, I put these on a few trees, and I'm going to be putting them on more. But it is getting to be deer rub season, and some of these trees, I don't know that they would be targets for deer rubs, but you know, they can rub on these sassafras all they want to, but I'd prefer them not to rub on the pawpaws, which are fragile, and I don't have that many of them growing well, so trying to protect those. That's the noon whistle here in town. That doesn't mean that we're under attack, although people who move here sometimes think that's what it means. They're alarmed by it. There's a pawpaw. It's got pretty wide leaves on it. That one is from Oikos, I believe. So as we go here, this flower bed's pretty much all done. There's just a few New England asters in there and a couple of these nondescript late white asters, but not much else flowering. Pawpaw there, and there's another one there that's pretty good. You'll see in the background, sumacs are kind of at or past their peak of flowering. This tree here, this is the mother of all these maple seedlings. This cherry has lost all of its leaves early. I almost wonder if there's something wrong with the tree. There's some dead leaves on the tree, so that's a little bit something that I'm concerned about. But if the tree dies, I guess it's not that big of a deal to me, as long as it doesn't fall and hurt anything else, which would be what I'd be more concerned about. Having dead trees in the landscape is actually pretty nice habitat. Great habitat for all kinds of things. So this coppice idea for these catalpas, you see about every other one of those has a ribbon. So these are going to get thinned out, so the spacing will be more appropriate for coppicing. And I still think I'll have to remove some of the trees to the south side to give them a little bit more light too, because they're pretty much a full sun species. So here, this dumb plant, this is the Viburnum Opulus, the false high bush cranberry, the one that has the stinky, nasty fruit that stinks like gym socks. Not edible unless you're in a starvation type situation, and even then you might reconsider. Birds don't even touch it really, unless they're near death. So this, I do have three of what are supposed to be the real American species planted here. There's one there, and there's a couple more, and maybe one there and some other place here, but they are not growing as well. So here, this colorful stuff is poison ivy. Easy to see that at this time of year. autumn olive. And this serviceberry is still got some of its leaves. This grass, I don't remember what grass this is, but it's coloring up sooner than some others. We've got wild senna turning yellow there. And this taller thing that looks similar, that's the false indigo, Amorpha fruticosa. Got my thicket of wild goose plum. In this area, yeah, these areas are just so interesting. So you'll see sassafras is very colorful. I've got my purple leafed, bird planted apple, crab apple probably. But you'll see some very colorful stuff as we get into this. My champion hazelnut here. Got a baby pawpaw there that came out of my compost pile. There's some Staghorn Sumac in the thick here. As we come around this way, we've got autumn olive, we've got sassafras, wild cherry, ragweed, wild rose, or multiflora rose I should say. Pretty little maple seedlings here. Got Virginia creeper, this red stuff on the vine, crawling up the autumn olive. These things are more false indigo, more sassafras with nice color. This is the one I believe might be a choke cherry. Really pretty, striking colors on that. I'll let that go for a little while and see what it turns into. Real pretty colors on this. I think this was a Missouri gooseberry from Oikos. Gets some very nice fall color. Oh, hi kitty. There's kitty in the background. There's a kind of a red oak back there. Another one of those I suspected choke cherries. We've got wild apples, wild pears. We got it all here. There's some more wild goose plum, I think there. Wild pear there that could be grafted. A wild pear over here that I did graft and grew about 4 feet this season. Really nice. I need to prune up some of this mess down here. Dewberries have a pretty fall color sometimes. This another maple, kind of looks like silver maple, but maybe. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff to see. So hazelnuts, so like I said, some get really pretty colors and some don't have much, so it's a bit variable. Hazelnut there with the serviceberry over the top of it. Some pretty stuff over here. This is the wild goose plum mother plant. It got spaded over to this location from where we just were. That's got quite an interesting gradient of color happening. This is a wild black cherry, which it would be fairly closely related to. It's also got that kind of gradient thing going on, which is pretty. There was a cultivar plum there that died. Shitloads of seeds on this false indigo I should collect. I could probably fill a 5-gallon bucket with seeds easily if anybody wants those. It's a great nitrogen fixing plant. So sugar maples in the background, old decrepit peach here. It's got some pretty colors happening. This is sand cherry, this finer leafed stuff. I almost forget this plant is here. I need to get some more in here because this has never fruited for me. It has flowered, but maybe it needs a partner. So I need to get more of those. Black locust, not doing much color-wise just yet. There's those peaches. The white pines, like I said, they're losing a lot of their needles now. Must be shedding maybe that time of year, or maybe from the drought. But this is just a riot of color over here, and most of what we're seeing, the most colorful stuff, is Staghorn Sumac. You'll also see that the winged sumac is going crazy. This little guy here, that's a winged sumac. And you can see there's sort of flaps on either side of the stem. That's why they call it winged. But they both seem to be peaking around the same time for color. So yeah, that's very, very nice. Get some yellows and oranges down underneath. Still got a green canopy up above. Try not to shoot into the sun here and get lens flare. So chestnuts had a good chestnut year, relatively speaking. This is one of the only chestnut years I've ever had because most of the trees that were not producing until now. But I had a handful of nuts from probably 6 or 8 different trees here on the property, which is cool. And then I've been collecting other places too. This so-called American chestnut from Hartman's has some nice goldy brown color. This tree had its first nuts this year. Well, it's had blank nuts many years, but this year it had about 95% blanks, or maybe 99%. But there were just a few little burrs that had nuts in them that were filled. So I don't know if it's a pollination issue or what, but this tree is pretty disappointing. Not excited about it. Oh, here we go. So here's one. This little burr here had a nut in it. So you see blank. There's a blank one and a filled one. This filled one is even smaller than some of the other ones were. So not a large nut, but anyway, probably won't find many more chestnuts today because, like I said, the season's pretty much peaked. So over there, color-wise, it's not too amazing. We've got some box elders and mulberries and stuff. Nothing too exciting color-wise. The sumacs put on a nice show. And it seems like if they're in shade, you know, that's happening a little bit later than if they're in full sun. And the ones in full sun out there are bright red, and these are kind of half shaded. They're orange. This wild crabapple is still quite ornamental. These fruits are not good to eat, but they are pretty to look at. And then this, whatever this apple is, I grafted this. It must be a very late apple. Not very large. Probably could pick these sometime. They're not super soft. Could probably pull them off pretty easily, but I might give those another week or so and see. Don't remember what variety they are. The other apples that were on the other branch, they grew quite large and they were a nice apple. So I'm excited about that. So not much going on here. Chestnuts, box elders got some color. Wild cherry doesn't really have any color in that case. Black locust is not doing much. So let's see, should I even walk that way? There's not much going on down that path, so maybe I'll skip that. Sumacs, again, got a multi-stemmed chestnut over there. Multi-stemmed chestnut here in front of us. That regrew. Had, I think, ambrosia beetles last season, and it regrew, so I'm going to choose a new central stem for that next spring. See if the deer rub on it at all. Yellow flags mean these cherries trunks are going to come down to give more light to my other stuff. Planted a new chestnut over in that tree tube. That is an AU super seedling from my friend Mark, whose chestnut orchard I visited a couple weekends ago. And here is a graft, another grafted chestnut of Bouche de Bédizac. Probably butchered that pronunciation, but that's what that is. So now that things are turning, you can start to see some hidden things. Like this, I think, might be a buckthorn seedling that I didn't notice until now. So that probably should come out. I do have a pecan. I think this is a pecan or hickory, one or the other, that I had forgotten about. That's here. It's kind of obscured by all this sumac now. Little hazelnut bush that some rodent planted for me. I'll probably leave that where it is. Dogbane turns earlier in the season. That's what that is. Now we're going to get into an area of interest here. This is the area where all the chestnut action was happening this year. So I've been visiting this area a lot, and you'll see there's some hay, spoiled hay on the ground here because I put that as a mat underneath a lot of these chestnut trees where I knew that nuts were going to be dropping. So the show is pretty much over for the harvest. It was kind of in between the two videos that I made. This chinkapin chestnut tree here had hundreds and hundreds of nuts on it this year, so I collected a good number of those, and they've almost all dropped out. You can sort of see the empty pods here. Now, like this one, these are very pokey. This is not as large as they sometimes get. They get to be about the size of a large chickpea, in a good year. But they're beautiful little nuts, and they're edible raw. And blue jays have discovered these, and I'm sure there's turkeys and all kinds of other birds who are keyed into this plant now. So they've been sharing in the harvest. There's a blue jay right now chastising me for being here. He's probably looking for the last few. But yeah, you can see how many, and these were all pretty much good nuts on this tree. This one across the way here, it had a lot of burrs, but most of them, I'd say 3/4 of them were these little blanks. So these little teeny tiny deals that are not edible. That's just a shell that never filled out. So this tree, the few full-size burrs that it did make were larger overall than another one, just by about 10 or 15%, but not as many. Most of them were duds, so probably a pollination issue. So you can see the hay I put down in here too. This chestnut tree was a beauty. This is the first year it had more than a couple of nuts. It probably had about 70 burrs on it, and I think some of them were, you know, duds, but still a good number. And it's a small to medium sized Chinese chestnut type nut that comes out of it. And there's still a few burrs on there that are not open, but I don't think there are any on the ground. The wildlife have been pretty diligent about coming and scouting this stuff and getting them, not leaving them lay for too long. So I don't want to bother to shake the tree and see if anything will fall out, but you can see this poor tree's got some real issues. It had a cage that was around it for too long, and the cage, it grew around the cage, and the cage is embedded in the trunks, and it also has multiple trunks that are twisted up and like growing into each other. So this needs some management help. Okay, this tall tree here with the big wasp nest in it. Wasp nest is there, I think you can see. It's hard to see on the screen. This is the timber chestnut. I did get probably several dozen nuts off of this tree, but again, this was the first one that was dropping nuts, and the animals were really on it, so they were getting most of them before me. I would come 2 or 3 times a day, and they were still getting them all. So once they were onto the program, they didn't let up. These, there's 4 of these here. These are Staghorn chestnuts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And these had the first crop this year, and these were planted 10 years ago, and so was this timber chestnut planted 10 years ago, and so were these chinkapin chestnuts. So 10 years to a crop, although we've had some real hard winters and drought summers and things in the meantime. Some of these trees have died down to the ground more than once and regrown. I think the timber didn't do that, but a lot of the other ones did. So you'll see there's multiple trunks on some of these. That one's got at least 2 trunks. It looks like it might have blight also. But there are still a few burrs on there, and they're small nuts, but they're attractive nuts, and they're real pretty. They're real dark brown, but great wildlife value as well as human food. So good year for chestnuts. Tulip poplar and catalpa, and here too, now that the colors are changing, the sumac are kind of letting you see what else is in here. I've got pecan over there, I've got a chestnut here, I've got a persimmon there, pecan, chestnut, chestnut, pecan, chestnut. Oh, this tall beauty right there, that is I think it's a swamp white oak that wildlife planted for me, and it has nice nuts on it that are actually edible, basically edible raw. I mean, you probably want to leach them a little bit, but they're not astringent, very little. Got a persimmon here. Persimmons can get a very pretty yellow fall color. Pecan, and you'll see I put some tree wrap around some of these pecans because they're kind of getting to the size and age that it makes me think that deer might rub on them. They're not real stout, but deer seem to like to rub on almost anything that's kind of growing in the open. So we'll see. Hopefully that might help prevent some damage from deer rubs. Another pecan there that needs to be released from the shade of this cherry tree. Got kind of a pretty little laneway here. Pardon the wind noise. You'll see some pawpaws have pretty fall color right now too. Very bright yellow leaves. So this is a pawpaw here. The catalpas also have yellow leaves about the same time, so they blend in a bit together. There's a nice looking pawpaw there. Pawpaw back there, and there's one there that's already lost all of its leaves. Probably different genetics. There's one there. These black locusts are not really coloring up yet. Once we get a really hard freeze, I imagine those leaves being so fine will probably just drop off overnight almost. Some more serious wind going on up here. You can see in the trees up there. Hopefully that'll pass. Don't know if I'll go through the whole entire property because the back corner there's not that much to see. So a couple of grafts that you've seen if you've watched my videos before. There's an apple graft, pear graft, and this thing, it's not quite callus all the way over, but it's getting there. You know, eventually these two tissues are going to meet up, so then it'll be kind of healed over and waterproof. This is an autumn olive that's got a pretty good crop on it, and these are large fruits. This one is from Oikos originally, and the taste of the fruit is not exceptional. They're kind of on the sour side, but if I can get these, the size of the fruit is pretty good. So maybe it's just one that's better later in the season. But all the ones I got from him generally have nice large fruit. Yeah, pretty sour. Chestnut tree that's got multiple trunks. Got a white birch that looks almost like a quaking aspen with that little breeze blowing on it. There's a red pine chestnut. Gonna be planting some more chestnuts in here in the next month or so. Probably gonna put one here. Maybe there, maybe not. Definitely here. Here's a red pine with a little red cedar growing up in the elbow of it. Every other one of these eastern red cedars is going to get removed so that these have more room to spread out and fill out. Otherwise, they're going to be crowding each other too much. So that's part of the management plan. A little chestnut, nitrogen fixer. This is my most mature white birch. This one has all kinds of seed things on it. It has lots of catkins and it has lots of, you know what you call these things, cones? I'm not sure what the botanical name is. Seed dispersal mechanisms, but there's about a zillion seeds per plant. So far I've not seen those seeding themselves out, but we'll see. I mean, they've been making those seed cones for years now, so we'll see if it does it. Catalpa there's a chestnut, a couple little hazelnuts, and this is a new American plum I've just planted. That was from my friend Jonathan Aylward's memorial. So that's to honor him. I'm trying to get more American plums back in this area to have more pollination and diversity. That catalpa got nuked with the frost. There's a couple little hazelnuts. This catalpa, or I'm sorry, not catalpa, chestnut coppice area, not doing too hot. You can see how much better the autumn olive grows than the chestnuts do. Hazelnut that has kind of pretty fall color, very few nuts this year, and this one's lost half of its leaves. That autumn olive is almost defoliated looking. And so back here, I just recently been planting, I got 4 or 5 butternut, supposedly pure butternut seedlings that came from Albion, Michigan. They're from a Michigan Nut Growers Association meeting. A woman who brings these nuts from Albion or collects them. So she started these seedlings and I bought them in the auction. So I put up 4 of them in the ground. They're small. They're only about 8 or 10 inches tall. Probably can't even see in there, but we'll see how these do. I think butternuts in general will get diseased and die, but I thought I'd plant some just for shits anyway, see what happens. So you can maybe see through the canopy the yellow leaves there, there's one back there. And I've got a few others. There's one back here. These are hybrid butternut Japanese walnuts called Walnuts or butter hearts, as you prefer. But those are showing up right now because of the leaf color difference. It's easy to forget some things you've planted when it's all just green, and it's areas that you don't get into very often. So there's a white pine losing a bunch of needles too. Kind of makes a nice appearance. Hope the tree is okay with that. There's another white pine there doing the same thing. So I'll show you here. I just planted 2 nice American plums from my friend John Edgerton. He had some extras, and these are nice. These are about 4 feet tall. Need to get some mulch on these things ASAP. But there's one there too. So this is the American plum thicket back here. Not a real striking fall color, but it's kind of pretty. And there's one there that I've spaded in that had fruits this year. And so having these additional ones back here will help ensure that the big thicket gets pollinated and has more fruit. And that'll be better for everyone. Wildlife will like that, I'll like that. And it'll pollinate the ones I planted. The oaks can get some pretty fall colors. I believe this thing and the one across the way here that's got yellow colors, I think that's a type of magnolia from Oikos, planted years ago. I'd totally forgotten about those things, and then they just they've been trudging along, I guess, for 10 years, and they kind of showed back up. So, alright, I will do a quick walk. American Plum, cup plant's got kind of a striking color back there. Sorry for bumping the phone. Little hazelnuts I planted there. These little tree tubes are hazelnuts. Trying to fill out along the pathway here and fill in my oak savanna area a bit. So all these tree tubes are hazelnuts. And there'll be a few more chestnuts planted back here too. I did have acorns on several of my oaks this year. So this one has had acorns multiple years. This has got a pretty nice crop this year, I would say. This is the Bergamble oak, I believe. Quite a cap on there. But yeah, maybe you can see there's dozens and dozens. This branch is kind of bending down with them. Decent sized little acorn. Here's one that's got a problem that's splitting open. Not sure if that's a pest problem or what, but maybe they too much water at one time and they burst like some fruits do. But I'll show you this. There's an oak over here that's got pretty leaves. More hazelnuts. Hazelnut there I planted this year. This oak, which I'd have to refer to my map to tell you which one it is. I don't think it's chestnut leaf oak because I didn't plant that as I recall, but real pretty fall colors on that. Very nice. Got a red oyster dogwood here. That's got pretty colors throughout the whole year. Some little oaks here. Don't remember what these are either. Maybe chinkapin oak. Have to consult my map though. Don't quote me on that. These have kind of a fuzziness to the bottom of the leaf. So now I'll just walk back down the hedgerow here. This way. Oh, that Catalpa got very frosted. And there's some oaks. The cherry is kind of naked looking there. Oak. Pretty color coming into the hedgerow here with that is winged sumac, and you got a good producing hazelnut. And over here, some of the persimmons have lost their leaves. Some of them are turning yellow. There's a nice persimmon. Nice persimmon in yellow there. An oak resprout that was cut 2 years ago and is regrowing. So yeah, there's not much left to harvest here. There's a few wild riverbank grapes and there's autumn olives and a few other things, but most of the nuts have dropped. A few hazelnuts still if I wanted to pick them. I've harvested the ones I wanted for seed. I'll probably leave a lot of the other ones for wildlife to enjoy. I might harvest a few more for myself to eat though too. I still got some from last year. So yeah, thanks for for joining me on my fall walk. And I might do another one depending on how the colors play out. I might do another one in a week or so. We'll just see how things look. If it's ugly and cold and nasty, I probably won't, but wanted to capture something of this before it was all gone for the year. Sunchokes, the lighter colored stuff here, and downy sunflowers are all zapped looking. They're almost like a ghosty, dried up white color. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.